All right, guys, today we are talking all about pull-ups. Now, along with push-ups and probably handstands, pull-ups and chin-ups are one of the most popular exercises to learn when you're getting into calisthenics, and for good reason, because they form one of the fundamental exercises which we base all of the calisthenics skills on. And not only that, but I know from experience they're very, very hard to learn, and who doesn't love a challenge? So in today's video, we're going to talk all about pull-ups. We're going to talk about some tips and tricks, the correct form that you need to use, some progressions that you can use to get you there, and also some common errors that you might want to avoid, which we see really, really often, and I have and still do sometimes make. I just want to preface this with the fact that I personally find pull-ups probably one of the hardest exercises. In terms of calisthenics, I'm much stronger at any pushing exercise. So for example, dips, handstands and push-ups, they are my jam. When it comes to pulling, I'm not so good, and my chin-ups are much, much stronger than my pull-ups. I have had a real journey with pull-ups, and I actually still use all the progressions that I'm going to show you today to improve my pull-ups at the moment, because again, there's so much work that I'm continuing to do on them. And that kind of takes me on to my first point that I really want to mention. I mention this in a lot of my calisthenics videos, is that it takes time. I learned to do pull-ups several years ago, and just to get my first pull-up, it took me well over a year, and then I noticed that my form improved and they became quite easy. And then I got a back injury and I wasn't able to train for 6 months, not related to calisthenics, just in case you were wondering, it was nothing pull-up related. And then I basically was back at the beginning. My strength did come back a little bit quicker, but I'm still very much working on it. And as always with calisthenics, when you actually achieve what you've been setting out to do, there's always improvements that can be made, but there's always another level that you can take it to. Once you can do pull-ups, then you might want to work on L-sit pull-ups, you might want to work on explosives. Of course, there's the muscle up. So it really is a never-ending journey. So you may as well try and enjoy the process, not be too harsh on yourself, and know that it is going to take a little bit of time. Okay, so a super quick overview on pull-ups. Obviously, it's a pulling exercise, which means you're going to be using all of your pulling muscles. I'm not going to name them all because there is so many, but just think a lot of your upper body, although pull-ups are still a compound movement. So you're going to be using a lot of the muscles in your body and the big muscle groups as well. When I was getting into calisthenics, what really used to confuse me was what was the difference between a pull-up and a chin-up. And essentially all it is your grip, and that means that it slightly activates different muscles. So a chin-up is when you have your fingers underneath and wrapped around the bar towards you. This is a supinated grip. And then a pull-up is when you have your fingers away from you over the bar. This is a pronated grip. Now, both exercises are brilliant and you can learn both in tandem. There's absolutely no problem with that. Some people have a preference, but really there is no right or wrong. With a chin-up, you tend to use a little bit more of your bicep, which most people, just as a very general statement, will find naturally a little bit easier than doing a pull-up, which uses a bit more of your upper back. So really what you train is up to you. I would say train both, so you can have a little bit of a mix, and because they do just slightly target different muscles, it's probably going to be beneficial to have both in there. But if you're just starting out, just do what feels natural, because essentially if you just train chin-ups, it's still going to be benefiting you in terms of pull-up strength and vice versa. So let's talk about the correct form with a pull-up. So when you come to the bar, you're going to grip it with a pronated grip. So you're going to have your fingers come over the top of the bar away from you, and you're going to have your hands around just wider than shoulder width apart. Now, whether you have your thumb under or over the bar is going to be up to you. To be honest with you, the jury is kind of out on this one. I tend to wrap my thumb underneath the bar. This helps me build grip strength. And then when I start to get a little bit more tired, I will put my thumb over the bar. And this means that I can just activate my lats a little bit better. Another argument for having your thumb over the bar is that it creates a bit more of a real world application. So I suppose if you thought about how you would use a pull-up in real life, maybe jumping over a wall or climbing a cliff or something like that, then you wouldn't have the ability to put your thumb underneath. So training with your thumb over the top is going to be more beneficial. I honestly would say don't think that deep about it. Just do what feels right for you. Now, to keep this as simple as possible, I'm not going to break the pull-up down too much. Essentially, when you're pulling yourself up, you want to think about bringing your chest to the bar. Now, because this video is aimed at beginners, I'm not going to go in too deep with the form. So essentially, when you start pulling yourself up towards the bar, you want to think about pulling your chest to the bar and getting the bar right to your sternum. And not only that, but having your chin well above the bar and not craning your neck. Now, it's very easy to say that, it's not so easy to do. So you have to keep practicing, using the right progressions, building up the strength, and it will come over time. But I would assume for most beginners, this is what's going to happen naturally. It's just knowing that the correct form would be to have your head back, to have your chest come up to the bar, and to feel nice and strong in that top position. Now, in terms of how your elbows track, when you're hanging onto the bar, you're going to pull them down, keeping them nice and close to your body, and imagine having them come into your back pockets. That's a cue that a lot of people like to use. So you're going to grip the bar really hard, pull your elbows down and your chest towards the bar, and then hold it, and then release nice and slowly. Another thing you want to think about is creating some space between your shoulders and your ears. So when you're hanging in a passive hang, you're going to start in this position where your shoulders are relatively close to your ears. And then from there, as you pull down, you want to create some space in between your ears and shoulders and draw back, and then maintain that at the top and as you come down as well. Okay, so let's talk progressions. How are we going to go from never having been able to hang on a bar, which is where I started, to being able to pull our body weight to the top? Now, an awesome way to start out is body weight rows. It's going to allow you to strengthen the muscles that you need for pulling, but in a much more modified way. And this is fantastic because it's so adaptable for beginners as well at any level. So literally anybody can do it. On a quick side note, I'm going to address the elephant in the room, and that is that calisthenics is touted as being body weight and usually therefore no equipment. But obviously, if you want to learn how to pull yourself up on a bar, you're going to need something to pull yourself up on. It doesn't have to be as elaborate as this. I'm the bit of the weird one for having a squat rack in my living room, and obviously this came many, many years down the track when this has become my job. I started out with a simple over-the-door pull-up bar that I got from Kmart in Australia. It was $12, and you can get them in most apartments and sports stores for a really, really good price. So if you want to learn chin-ups, pull-ups, and some calisthenic skills, I would highly suggest investing in one of those when you have the ability to. But other than that, you can adapt loads of equipment in the gym depending on what exercise you're working on. There are loads of outdoor parks which are fantastic with low bars and high bars. And you could also potentially invest in a TRX suspension system or some rings which you can attach to a tree or even into a door or something like that to start building up the strength for these exercises. So there is plenty of options for all levels, but first off, let's start with these body weight rows. And there are tons of different ways that you can set it up. I'm just going to show you on a suspension system, a TRX or some rings, just because it's going to be easier. So if you have those in your gym or you have them at home, fantastic. If not, you can set up a bar or find a bar that's suitable for you and do them on there. But essentially what we want to do is start working on building up the strength in those pulling muscles and feeling nice and strong and controlled. I still do these pretty much every day. I love this exercise, so let's get stuck in. Okay, so with body weight rows, the higher that the surface that you're pulling from is going to be slightly easier, and then the lower you get, the harder it's going to be, because simply you're pulling more of your body weight. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab a bar, or you're going to grab the handles that you have. And again, if you are just starting out, you might be up here, much, much higher, but I'm just going to go for some sort of medium distance here. And you're just going to come down onto your heels. You want your body to be lined up nice and straight, so a big long line between the tip of your head and your heels. And then from here, what you want to think about is drawing your elbows back and bringing your hands to the sides of your chest, holding it for 1 second and then releasing down nice and slow and controlled. You want to create some tension not only in your core, but also in your glutes and your legs as well. So nice and strong, chin is tucked in a little bit, you don't want it out here. And then you're just going to pull up, squeeze, and then come back down. So next up we have leg assisted. So this will be the next progression up from your body weight rows. And again, you can do both at the same time, so you can mix and match. Just make it work for you and whatever feels challenging for you. So what you want to do is you want to find a surface that you can stand on, that when you stand fully up, you can have your chest at the bar. And essentially, we're going to put some weight into our legs, which is going to support us a little bit and give us a bit of assistance to get to the top of the bar, but we can practice that movement, and the less weight that we put through our feet, the more that we're going to be pulling through our arms. So you're going to set yourself up for your pull-up with your hands slightly wider than shoulder width, thumbs wherever you want them to be, and then you're going to choose how much weight you have in your legs, and then think about drawing those elbows back and bringing your chest up towards the bar, creating space between your shoulders and your ears. Hold it for 1 second, and then come back down. A really fantastic exercise. Now, something nice that you might want to consider as well, once you start to get a little bit stronger, is to perform it normally. So you're going to have your feet on the box. You're going to bring your chest up to the bar, but when you get to the top, you can remove one or both feet and try to release yourself down nice and slowly until you get to the bottom. And this is sort of a negative, which we'll go on to later, but also it's going to start introducing a little bit more body weight into it. Now, we spoke about negatives earlier, and we're going to go through those now. Negatives are a fantastic training technique that you can use in a lot of different exercises to build up strength and also proprioception in the movement. Now, they do require a lot of energy, so you probably want to take a little bit more rest time in between your sets and reduce your reps slightly as well, just to make sure that you're getting enough recovery so you get the most out of your exercise and you can put your maximal effort in. Now, with negatives, all we're going to do is the downward phase of the exercise, but we're going to do it really, really slow and try to focus on our form and just controlling that movement the whole way down. So you're going to aim for between 4 to maximum 8 seconds. Probably won't be that easy at first. You might not be able to hit 4 seconds. It might be 1 or 2 seconds. But over time, if you keep working on it and keep focusing on that form, you'll notice that it really helps you build strength. But more importantly, that movement will just start to feel really good. So you want to find something that gives you the ability to start at the top of the bar. And what you're going to do is set yourself up in your pull-up position, release yourself onto the bar into an isometric hold. So you're going to stay at the top, create that space between your shoulders and your ears, and then very, very slowly, for the entire movement, control that movement down. And then when you get to the bottom, you're just going to step up and start again. Once your negatives are feeling pretty solid, you're going to be on the cusp of getting your first pull-up or your chin-up. So keep going, you're nearly there. But there's also some exercises that you might want to consider adding into your routine or trying out that might be helpful as well. And again, just mix and match, do what feels right for you. But I'm going to run through a couple that might be useful. So firstly, I'm going to talk about banded pull-ups. Now, there are some people that will use bands from the very, very beginning, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. The thicker the band, the more assistance it's going to give you in terms of how much body weight you're pulling. So the thicker the band, technically, the easier it should be. And then as you progress in terms of your strength, you'll reduce the size of the band, and therefore eventually you'll be able to do a body weight pull-up. However, there are a few murmurings that it's not the best training tool to solely rely on because of a few different factors. Let's just start with what a pull-up looks like with a band. So you're going to wrap your band around the bar or whatever you're using. There's a couple of different ways to do this. Again, there's no right or wrong, just find what works for you. And then you're going to pull it down, put it around your foot or around your knee. You can either put one foot through or you can put both feet. And then you're just going to perform your pull-ups. So you're going to grip the bar and you're just going to use the band essentially as some assistance and then come back down. Now, the issue that some people have with bands, especially as a beginner, is that it kind of dictates the movement that you're making. So it might just pull your form off a little bit, or you might end up relying on it a little bit more because you're used to having it there. But another thing to consider is that the band gives you the most assistance at the bottom of the pull-up. So that's when the band's expanded most, and that's actually the hardest part of the pull-up, this first initial phase from hanging passively to being able to engage your scapulars, so your shoulder blades, and then pull from the bottom. That's the hardest part, and that's where this band is going to be giving me the most assistance. So if I start to rely on these solely as my training tool, then I'm never really building as much strength as I could be in the bottom part of the pull-up. Now, one way to overcome this would be to have a bit of a combination of training tools. So you could use banded pull-ups and do negatives or leg assisted or jumping pull-ups, something like that. Another one would be to make sure that you're doing your accessory work. So a fantastic exercise to help build up the strength in the bottom part of that pull-up is scapular pull-ups. And again, like with bodyweight rows, I do these pretty much every day, just to keep my shoulders nice and healthy. But you're gonna start in a passive hang, and then all you're gonna think about is bringing your ears away from your shoulders, squeezing your shoulder blades back together, holding that for 1 second, and then coming back down. So those are just a few considerations with banded pull-ups. Another exercise that is quite popular, which you can do again in combination, is to do jumping pull-ups or chin-ups. Now, essentially what we're doing here is creating some momentum to be able to pull ourselves to the top of the bar and then controlling that downward phase almost like a negative. Again, I wouldn't say this is the best training tool, but it's definitely one that could be really useful in combination with others. I mean, when you're a beginner, your goal is literally just to be able to get to the top of the bar in any way possible, and this helps to make it possible. So those are just a few of the progressions that you can use, and you can find one that works for your level and start building up from there. And I suppose that brings us towards the end of the video, but there's just a couple of other points that I wanted to run over. I suppose more frequently asked questions or common issues that will come up. And the first one is, how often should you train, how many sets or reps should you do, or what exercises should you do. There's always the option to follow a program. There are loads available. I have one on my workout app, which takes between 8 to 12 weeks. Not that you'll probably be able to do a pull-up in 8 to 12 weeks, but it will give you the progressions to start working on, and then you can just extrapolate that out for your own training. But there is also a style of training called greasing the groove. And for me, I accidentally did this when I was learning pull-ups, but actually there's a lot of benefits to grease the groove training. And essentially what this is working not to your maximal effort, but to around 50% of your maximal effort, and doing it regularly. So essentially, in layman's terms, it just means every time you walk past a pull-up bar, try to do a pull-up, even if you can't do one, or try to do a chin-up, or try to jump and pull yourself up. It doesn't have to be a part of a workout, and you're not putting a huge amount of effort into having to be able to do these. So it could just be one banded pull-up every 3 hours, but you'll notice over time this really helps, not just in terms of strength, but also in your neurological adaptations to doing pull-ups as well. So you'll be able to perform the movement better, but it will also increase your strength at the same time. And you could do this with any type of training. I did this with handstands and push-ups as well. So if I was waiting for my kettle to boil, I would try and do some push-ups against the kitchen counter, or if I was waiting for something to happen in the house, I would just try and do some handstands against the wall. And just doing it, I didn't really feel like I was making much effort, even if I wasn't actually completing it and not able to do a handstand or a push-up, but it helped overall in the bigger picture. So you can do a combination of following the program and greasing the groove. Again, just do what feels right for you. The other question that often comes up is hands and grip strength. My hands have strengthened up over time, and I have quite a few calluses on my hands now, which are quite useful when I'm doing bar work. But I remember when I started out, my hands suffered, and even if I have a little bit of a break now, just hanging on a bar gets really painful. The first thing to mention is that the more time you spend hanging on a bar or pulling on rings or a TRX, the tougher your hands are going to get, and so the pain will decrease over time. Now, the pain's one thing, but grip strength and being able to hold yourself on a bar is a slightly different topic. Again, you will get stronger over time. So simply doing a passive hang and hanging on the bar is going to be improving your grip strength and also your forearm strength as well. Now, there are a couple of exercises that you can do to improve your grip strength, or you can actually buy tools to improve your grip strength. But one fantastic exercise is farmer's carries, or I just like to think about it as day-to-day living. So picking up grocery bags and carrying them for a longer distance, or picking up awkward things just with your hands. And this is going to be building strength over time, and that's going to benefit you in terms of hanging on a bar. There are aids that you can use. So I sometimes will use chalk. It creates a little bit more friction. It will help you hold on to the bar better, especially if you find that your hands get sweaty, which again is completely normal. And some people like to wear gloves as well. I'm personally not such a big fan because I find I slip in the gloves a little bit, and I like having calluses on my hands so that I can do my bar exercises and also do some rock climbing. So it kind of benefits me to have them there. But if you just find the pain is just a little bit too much, that's always an option for you, and they're super, super cheap to get hold of as well. But before this video gets too long, I think I'm going to leave it there. Now remember, this video is aimed at beginners, and I don't want you to think that you can achieve a pull-up super, super quickly and get demotivated if you can't. Like I said, it took me well over a year to be able to get my first pull-up, and I still find them very, very challenging, and there are things that I want to work on in terms of my form and that I have to work very, very hard to improve. And like I said again, chin-ups for me are much easier than pull-ups as well. It's really like my nemesis. So my biggest piece of advice is just to try to enjoy the process, have a little bit of a laugh at yourself, don't take it too seriously. Know that it's probably going to take a decent amount of time, and use every opportunity you have to try to explore using your body's pulling strength. So it could be at the play park with your children, it could be doing bodyweight rows on a table at home. Just any opportunity you have, every time you walk past a bar, try and do something, and that will go a long way to helping you not only enjoy the process, but also to getting your pull-up eventually. Trust me, if I can do it, you definitely can do it. It just takes time. All right, guys, it is well and truly time for me to go and get a coffee, because it's been about an hour and a half and I need my caffeine infusion. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm gonna go and work on my pull-ups now, and I will chat to you guys very, very soon. Have an amazing day.